Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Last First Date Radio, featuring interviews with experts in dating, relating, and mating in midlife. And now, here's your host, Sandy Weiner.
Hello, everybody. This is Sandy, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. It is a gorgeous fall day here on the East Coast of the United States. We're having an Indian summer, so I don't know where you are, but it is absolutely gorgeous, and I just love the sunshine. I am the founder and chief love officer at Last First Date, and my mission is to help women and some men achieve healthy, off-the-charts love in the second half of their lives. And there's so much negativity at this age. There's so many people who've given up hope, and I want to restore that hope because people do find love. And actually, today on the show, we're going to be talking about a love story. We have Dee Dee Marks. She is an author, and she is going to be talking about her new book, Beyond Believing. It's an inspiring story to awaken the heart, and I have read it, and I agree. It is very inspiring. We need inspiration, guys. We cannot give up on love. So as a dating coach, I love helping people own their value. Really, that's one of the keys to finding love is to know yourself, love yourself, and know your boundaries. And boy, boundaries are huge. I have been given many challenges in boundary setting in the last few weeks, and I think that when we can set clear boundaries with people, we are asserting our value, and that is so important. So don't be afraid to say no to things that do not align with your true values, with who you are, with your needs, your values. You need to make that come first, and do not compromise on that. So there are a lot of things that I find that people do over and over again that are sabotaging their success at dating and relationships. And so what I've done is I've compiled a free guide for you guys in which I outline the top 3 mistakes that midlife daters make in dating and how to turn them around so you can find lasting love. And it is my gift to you. So if you want a copy, all you have to do is go to lastfirstdate.com and sign up on my homepage. And I also have something really exciting to announce. Last week, I started a new Facebook group. It's for women over 40 and single women over 40, and it's called Your Last First Date. Your Last First Date. It is free for anybody to join. I decided I wanted to create a big tribe of people who are all looking for support in dating and relationships, people over 40, women over 40. So sorry, guys, I don't have a group for you yet, but any single ladies who want to join, please ask to join the group, Your Last First Date, and I will approve you, and you'll be in the group, and you'll start joining into our conversation, which is vibrant and alive and exciting. Because I want you all to go on your last first date. You've heard that before. Now let me introduce my fabulous guest today. Her name is Dee Dee Marks, and she's a contemporary romantic fiction writer, a blogger, and a lover of all things social. She's a graduate of the University of Dayton as well as the Second City program in Chicago, where she currently resides. She's a proud aunt and a self-described hopeless romantic. I sometimes call that a hopeful romantic. Marks has always had a knack for humorous and engaging storytelling, and her pen name is dedicated to her beloved friend Dan, who continues to guide and inspire her in her daily life. Welcome to the show, Dee Dee.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show. And thank you for writing that book, Beyond Believing. And so let's talk a little bit about the book and about the facts. We'll start with your pen name and the fact that it's a dedication to Dan. So can you tell us a little bit about the real Dan and what inspired you to write this book?
Sure. So I lost my friend Dan, who was this amazing, charismatic, lovable, teddy bear. When I was 23 years old, he was also 23. We were, best of friends in high school. We never had a romantic relationship, but when he passed away, it was an extreme tragedy in my life, as you can imagine, and I only lost, grandparents into that point in my life. So I'd never lost anybody close to me or somebody my age that had their whole life ahead of them. And, I grieved. It's been over 20 years now, and I still mourn his loss and think about him. I mean, obviously, it's gotten easier over the years, but we still, as a group of friends, keep his his memory alive by honoring him at certain different activities throughout the year with his parents and his family. And I think that this book, it kind of came to me at a crossroads in my life where I found myself without a job, and for the first time in my life, and I was 40, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to necessarily do this for 25 more years before I retire. So I just really dug deep and tried to figure out what my passion was, and so I chose to start writing. And so when I started writing this book, I didn't write it as a memoir or a biography because, I'm nobody special, no offense to myself, but nobody would want to pick up my personal story, right? So I decided to write it as a fictional author, and that way I could embellish and change things and characters. And there is a lot of fiction in the book, but a lot of it is based on my personal journey. So, but the reader doesn't know which those parts are. So when I came up with the pen name, it was because, I've lived a corporate life for 25 years, and I wanted to keep, myself anonymous and be known as a writer in the rest of the world and still keep my personal life personal and corporate life corporate. So the natural name came to me. The first letter of my first name is D, and then Dan's name was Daniel. His middle name was Mark, and I changed the K to an X for Flair. And it just kind of rolls off the tongue, and it's a name that people remember. So I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah, it's a great name. And it's funny that I had a friend right before I got married. I became really close to a guy whose nickname was Didi, and he got that name from a babysitter. I think they had a babysitter who was Chinese, and Didi meant little brother in Chinese or something.
Aww,
I don't know. It was this
cute.
crazy thing, and his real name was nothing like Didi, but it stuck with him his whole life. And so, yeah, he's like the only other Didi that I know. So it's interesting. But I love the name, and I think it is a good it's a good name to remember. And I think it's interesting that you separated out your corporate life from your new life as a storyteller. And I think also, this comes up a lot with social media, because I'm a person who's out there pretty publicly. I write for many big publications, and I'm pretty opinionated, and I'm dating, and so I try to keep my personal life separate from my professional life, and sometimes they collide, and people make up stuff too. That I remember years ago, somebody said, he looked me up and he said, I don't want a dating coach, and I said, I'm not looking to coach you. I'm looking to date you. But yes, so it's interesting, and I think that sometimes it is really important to separate out the different parts of ourselves. And so are you still in the corporate world at all, or are you totally separated out from there?
So unfortunately, I haven't made enough money yet that I can call writing a full-time career, but that's of course the objective. So no, I do still have a full-time job, and it is totally separate. I do the writing in my personal time, but it allowed me, there's so many things. I don't know if you've worked in the corporate world, but there's so many things that happen in the corporate world that are writing worthy. So I was like, I can't give up all this material, that I've gone through in 20 years in a career and leave that on the table. It absolutely needs to be part of my story. So I didn't want anybody to take offense to anything or be like, is that me or is that my situation? So that's why I wrote it fictionally, so that I can embellish and, use different characters and different scenarios, but still kind of get to the same outcome that I've maybe experienced in my own life.
Yeah, I think that's one of the critical things about writing about your real life is that you write about people, and some people get really offended. And so when you fictionalize them, that's why I was just telling you before we started that I'm writing a novel for the first time, and it's fiction. And it freed me. It really freed me to write about my life in a way that I never could, because I was always afraid of offending people. So I think maybe I'll get a pen name. And you're giving me lots of good ideas here.
Let me know if you need help.
I might. Okay, so what I loved about this love story is that it really felt real. So actually, can you give us a little synopsis for people who have not read the book? Just really kind of the brief story about what happened.
Sure. And first, I should mention, I'm not sure that you know that it is a series. It's a trilogy. So this is just the first book in the series, and there will be 2 more coming. So, I get asked a lot how I came up with a trilogy, but when I started writing the story, I wanted to really talk about 2 specific characters from a female and a male perspective. And I was realizing that I couldn't cover as much time as I wanted to and get in depth as I wanted to with the characters by only creating one book. So that's how it turned into a series. But it's essentially about these 2 characters, Olivia and Finn, who are living completely separate lives across the world from each other, but they're going through very similar experiences. And both of them go through this tragic event that ends up leading them to each other at the right time when they're finally healed and are ready for that relationship. So it's really a romantic story about, them going through their own personal tragedies and, life challenges, and then they're actually being led to one another by their deceased loved ones. So it's an interesting twist, and it kind of makes you think that fate is really, happens, and that destiny is really there for you. So it's just a story of hope and love, and, stop looking and maybe it'll find you. And there's 2 more books to come.
It's interesting that you said stop looking and it will find you. So in this new Facebook group that I started, Your Last First Date, there's a lot of hopeless talk, and which is common at this age. And one woman posted that she's really confused because there's so much conflicting advice that people give her about dating. And one of them is, stop looking and he'll find you. And the other one is, get off your butt and keep looking. And so where do you follow? What do you follow? And so I personally, from a person who was kind of passive about dating most of my life until I got married, I kind of, met people serendipitously and lived in a very social place in New York City and met a lot of people. And now in the age of social media and the age of online dating, and there's so many opportunities to meet people, and also almost no opportunities to meet people in real life, that you really do have to be proactive. And I think what I translate as the stop looking and it'll happen is stop being desperate and stop being needy, and it'll more likely happen. And I think that's probably where that started, because I think a lot of people go after dating as if it's a mission and it's the, be all and end all, and life will end if you do not find somebody, and that is not true.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the key to it is really focusing on yourself and what your passions are, and if you start pursuing your passions, then that's likely where you'll meet a mate who has similar interests, and it'll just happen naturally versus trying to find a needle in a haystack in an online dating site or something to that nature. So I agree. It's just about self-love and figuring out what you want out of life and living that life, and then letting it just find you.
Yeah, it's important to love your life and to live a passionate life. And one of my clients wants to write a book, in fact, and she's looking for love. And I said, let's get you writing that book, because that's going to make you a happier person, which will make you much more appealing as a partner. So I'm supporting her in that area too, because I think we have to not put things off. And you know, like you were at a crossroads and you chose to do something that's your passion, and I really give you a lot of credit for that, because a lot of people never do it. They're too scared. It is scary. It's scary to take a risk and put yourself out there.
Absolutely. Yes.
But what you did was also smart, because you didn't give up your day job yet. And have you read Big Magic yet by Liz Gilbert?
No, I have not.
So she writes about the creative process, and she said she did not give up her day job until after Eat, Pray, Love hit the big time. And she had sold a lot of stuff. She really did not ever want her art to be responsible for her happiness. In other words, like if you are making your art also be your living, then you'll get angry at your art, and you will possibly, write from a place of scarcity instead of a place of joy and abundance.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And when I started my process, I didn't go the traditional publishing route. I ended up doing self-publishing, and I'm with a publisher. There's a hybrid publisher, so they do use the traditional bookstore channel, but I didn't have the pressure of deadlines and timelines, and I wrote the story that I wanted to write, and of course it had to be edited and whatnot, and I had to get a lot of feedback, but I didn't limit myself. I just told the story I wanted to tell, and I was like, it's either going to be good or it's not going to be good, and people are either going to read it or they're not going to read it, but at least it's out there, and it's the story that was in my heart and that helped me heal, really.
Yeah, that's actually, I love that, because that's the feeling that I'm getting as I'm writing now, that it's cathartic. There's something about the process of it, and what I'm doing in my book is it's called The Love Optimist, and I'm going back in time to my very first relationship and how it set the tone for the rest of my life, And it's because that's really what I teach women, is to really find the patterns that we create through. If we don't break it, we still keep dating the same person with a different face, and so it can be very healing to do the work for yourself, whether it's through writing or through journaling or through anything. Working with a therapist, it's all part of the process. So let's talk about which parts of the book, from like feedback from readers. What are you hearing from people in terms of which parts resonate the most for people?
So it's interesting. The channel that I've used the most to help promote the book is I've done a lot of book clubs, because it was a light summer read, so I positioned it that way, and a lot of people picked it up for their book clubs. And so if they were local, or even a few that weren't local, I went and attended those book clubs, because I really wanted the feedback from people. It's almost like a free focus group to find out, what did you like, what did you not like, or what would you like to hear more of, so that I can include it in the next 2 novels. So I think what's resonating most with people is that everybody has lost a loved one in some form or fashion in their life. And, death is a scary topic, and things that, it's very personalized. But I've made it so that I've kind of highlighted the fact that if you keep yourself open to the universe or to the beyond, that you will get signs and symbols from your loved ones where you can feel this comfort and guidance from above. And, I've been receiving it for 20-plus years, and it brings me a tremendous amount of comfort. And so it's helped open up that conversation. So a lot of these book clubs are like, oh, well, my mom passed away, and I see butterflies all the time, and I thought I was crazy. And, everybody picks up different signs and symbols. But I think if other people talk about it and they say it's okay, they don't look or feel like a weirdo by saying, I feel like I hear from my mom too, or my dad, or my sister or brother. So I think that's the thing that has really been common amongst all these book clubs, is the connection to deceased loved ones.
That's interesting. And I love the butterfly reference that you use about seeing a butterfly, because that seems to be so common. It's just fascinating to me. I have a former client who her mother represented butterflies. She had butterfly pins, tons of them, and when she passed away, the whole family would wear her pins. And also, I think when her father died recently, she saw a butterfly on the ground as they were walking. Like, it was all these just signs that they said, Mom is here, and right.
That's
and I've read
coincidence.
many stories. Yeah, I think the butterfly is just an interesting symbol. To me, that was the name of my first coaching company was Chrysalis, because I felt that I just that whole symbol of coming out of your cocoon and really that we can also metamorphosize at any point in our lives, and that's what you've done too by taking on the writing. I think that people think that we're all cooked and set and life is done, and but when you see that life change is possible at any age, and romance is possible at any age, and all these themes in the book, which are really beautiful, and I totally agree with. I think that they're important messages for people.
Absolutely.
So, how long did it take you to write this book? I'm just curious.
So, the hardest part was just starting. You've never written a book before. What's the first line? And what I like to tell people is, because I wrote it from two different perspectives, a male and a female character, that it gave me a lot of freedom to jump around in the story. So I didn't write it in a linear fashion. I really wrote based on my mood. And I think that that's the most important thing to teach people, is that there are no rules about writing. And, you might scrap it tomorrow, but today this is what you're feeling, or you may not put it in that chapter, but in a future chapter. So I played around a lot with it, and I didn't limit myself. And I would say that it took me in time about 9 months, but if I condensed the actual amount of time that it took me to write and re-edit, it only took me about 30 days. And I think it was because it was a story that was in my heart for 20 years, and it literally just poured out of me. And, I would go back and read it and be like, did I really just write that? So I feel like the writing is also being guided by my friend Dan, and he's constantly triggering things in my mind to say, oh, that would be a good storyline, or I need to mention that. So I would keep a pen and a piece of paper with me and my iPhone notepad, and I take notes all the time about things I want to talk about or include in the next book. But I haven't really started. I'm only, a fifth of the way through my second book, and I haven't written in a couple months. So it goes in spurts, right, where you feel creative, and then times where you're just busy and you don't pick it up. So it really just varies, I think.
I love the no rules part, because I actually was stuck with like, oh my God, I forgot to put a table of contents, and I had already written like 2,000 words, and I was just like, where am I going? I don't even know. And then I went back and then I added it, and then I thought, well, I don't have to stick to that. And then I was thinking, but I want to get to the part that happens like 20 years later. So I think I'm going to write that next, even though there's a whole piece that's going to be missing. But if I do that, I may end up lopping off the whole first part of the book and just taking the last part of the book. Who knows, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think the biggest
You're the
problem,
only one
like people,
exactly.
And I think that's the beauty of it, is that it's your personal project, and we tend to sabotage ourselves from starting things because we want it to be perfect. Yes, perfect is the death of creativity. So you should actually join the National Novel Writing Month that I'm part of, because if you want to, it just started on Sunday, and that might get you to finish your book in 30 days, because you did it in 30 days. And if you have the accountability of like 300,000 people who are writing their novels this month, that's how many have signed up.
Wow.
There are meetups. I mean, you could like sit in a library with a bunch of people and meet cool people, and I highly recommend it. It was. Yeah.
I said I was definitely be interested in learning more about it.
Yeah, no, I recommend it. I think it's a fun thing. So who do you draw your inspiration from as a writer?
So that's so many different places. Friends, family, people that inspire me, and one of the things that I noticed once I opened myself up to, okay, I'm going to start writing, I started going to conferences. I was almost like a sponge. Like, how do I do this? Who do I talk to that's done this that can help me? And in my corporate life, I'm a project manager, so of course I thought of this as, okay, well, I'm going to need, an editor, and I'm going to need a printer, and I'm going to need a cover designer, and I'm going to, So I was thinking about it in all sorts of pieces and parts, and I found a company that was able to kind of marry all those things together for me in one place. But I've gone to all these conferences, and I've met all these amazing people that have done amazing things, and you just open yourself and expose yourself to this whole other world of like-minded people that you never knew existed, and I think they help keep the flame going and encourage you. But in general, in my life, my family and my friends, and I've been fortunate enough to have some really great career mentors that are more life mentors really than career focused, because they know me at a very personal level, so they know how to kind of, pick out the things that are holding me back and encourage me to, stop getting in my own way and go for it. And it's really, really helped me move past the fear and into action.
Yeah, that fear is a killer.
Fear and perfection are the two killers of creativity.
Yes, it is. And fear is all in our heads. There's nothing, like, you're not going to die if you start writing, for the most part, unless you have a heart attack. But, most people do not have, like, a stab wound that kills them from taking a pen to paper. And I think what you mentioned about having mentors is critical. And I know that as a business owner, one of the things that I learned is that you have to have support. People think you have to do it all alone, and it's lonely to do it all alone, and there's no need to do it all alone. And there are tons of people who are there to cheer you on and support you, and so I think people really should pay attention. And I just heard this yesterday from another coach. She said, I just have so much to do, and I can't do it all. And I'm like, why are you doing it all? Who else can help you? Delegate.
Exactly.
Get support. How many people have you hired who could look at your business and take a look and step back and say, here's what you're doing well, here's what you're not. Same with a book. It's, somebody who can edit it really well can make the whole book. I read a lot of books for this radio show, and I can tell when they've had a really good editor and when they haven't, because I've seen people who write emails to me after writing a gorgeous book, and their emails are illiterate. So, obviously good editor, really good editor. So that's key. So in our last few minutes, yes.
I was just going to say one of the things that I did, because I'm working full time, is I hired an intern from my college who was majoring in the same thing that I did. And she's doing a lot of the legwork for me since I don't have a lot of time. So people should even, try to seek out potentially free resources that are looking for that experience that can help them with day-to-day tasks that, might be too much for you.
That's a great idea. So tell people how they can find your book, how they can find you. You have a website?
Sure. So my website is ddmarks.com, no spaces. And on my website, there's some history about me. I have a blog, and you can download a free chapter of my book. You can also order it on my website, or you can find me on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. And all my social media channels are listed on my website, so anybody feel free to connect to me. I am pretty active socially in my for my fans, so I would love to meet and have new followers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope the listeners will go out and purchase Beyond Believing, and hope it inspires people to know that love is possible, and they should keep on believing. So thank you so much, Dee Dee.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. And thank you all for listening today, and I hope that you all go on your last first date very soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.